Good morning, team. It looks like we're starting off with technical issues because my earphones aren't connecting. So let's see if we can fix this. Whoop. Have Peter joining us soon. We've got Doc Tester. Hey Doc. Having some good old Tommy G technical difficulties on this side. I'm trying to get these earphones connected because they're connected somewhere else. Okay, we're going to change tech. Taking these out, and we've got Peter Rouse in the house, and we're going to bring him in. I'm going to go earphone free on this one. So Pete, there we go. We're letting you in, and let's have a look here. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so Pete, just waiting for Facebook to catch up and allow you into the house, Mr. Rouse. Doesn't seem like it's wanting to play with you at the moment. So let's see how we go. Waiting. And yep. Okay, I've allowed it to be able to, for you to be able to invite yourself as well, Pete. So, okay, let me rest this one just here. And can you guys hear me, Mark or Pete? I'm gonna put these in. I should have enough. I'm on the desktop, says Peter. Okay, I'm going to go around this way. You can see the back of my hand. Sorry about that. Sorry? Yeah, you might need to connect. I don't know if you can do it from your desktop, Pete. That could be the issue. I think I've tried it once before, actually, to do a... Yeah. Okay, so you can hear me. That's cool. And there we go, we'll just mount that there. We're good. We've got some sound connected. And I'm going to see if we can get you on. No, it's still not letting allow viewers to request to join you as a guest in your broadcast. So I've got that switched on, Pete. If you can't get it happening on the desktop, you're probably going to need to switch to the phone, and we can kick off with a better start to the FB Live. So guys, yeah, it was a quick trip yesterday to Adelaide, which you will, for those that joined, you would have seen Anne and I doing a quick trip down into where most of the wine, although New South Wales and Victoria would probably contest this, but most of the wine produce, or at least the grapes, most of the grapes come out of South Australia, if not the wine produce. Although a lot of it does. I think it's 60% or something like that. And yeah, my sleepy hometown of Adelaide, also known for education. They've got a few universities there. So we're going to be talking about today epigenetics. Hot subject. It's becoming, as I look more into the lens, being on the other side here, because I usually have it around that way, where this is a sort of a hot subject right now. And, you know, there's been a lot around genes, and I think people are getting more and more educated in that your genes, oh, there we go. Peter Rouse wants to be in your video. I reckon you might have come on the phone. Approve. There we are. And I think you're adding in there, Pete. So, epigenetics and genes. There he is.
Technology, man.
That's all right. Technology, see? I'm glad to see I'm not the only one today. It doesn't work off the desktop, right?
I can start a feed on the live feed on the desktop, but looks like I can't join you, which is kind of strange.
It's weird. FB. Facebook is starting to feel a few little bits of pressure here and there, I think, at the moment.
Well, I'm pretty much, I mean, apart from you guys and a bit of business stuff, I'm getting off there. It's a waste of time.
Waste of time. There we go.
You're better off building your own platform. Remember, we talked about that.
Yeah, building your own platform. Yeah, well, if things like that keep happening, then people will start to go invest back in their own platforms, right? So,
yeah.
All right.
Let me just share this.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you sharing something?
Yeah, I'm just posting it on my page so that.
Okay, great. We can get some people coming on. We've got Doc Tester, I think, is in the House of Rouse as well for this session. So, epigenetics. Now, there's a lot of confusion around genes, I think, right now. People are hearing either from doctors or different bits of media stuff they read, see, hear, whatever, about the genome, the genotype, the phenotype. It's in your genes. They get these recreational results from 23andMe is probably the most widely known, but there's a whole lot of others. DNA Fit as well, go into it a bit deeper and probably do a better job. And this is around fitness and sort of nutrition. But once again, a lot of it is like gene-based, right? As in the genome, which will define
the DNA.
The DNA, right? The thing is, there's this term epigenetics as well. And so everybody's getting totally confused when they're doing these tests and they think, oh my God, I'm going to die of this particular disease because I'm most predisposed to this and have a 1% chance of something or other happening. But it's really confusing, Pete. So could you sort of like give us an overview, and especially since you have I know you have a PhD in physiology and you've got a master's in genetics and biochem, right? So you're right in there. Give us the gene, DNA, what it is, genes, the genome, the genotype, epigenetics. Can you kind of unpack that stuff for us so people know what the hell we're talking about?
Okay, so let's start with, what you kind of brought up first was, there's people who are identifying certain genes that are present in their DNA makeup, and then they go and do things radical that go in and, like, for example, Angelina Jolie, she removed her breast because she had a certain gene that predisposed her to breast cancer and ovarian cancer.
Was it the BRCA gene? BRCA or something? Yeah.
Yeah. So she did that as a precaution, but that gene presence doesn't mean that gene is expressed. It's the expression of that gene that will actually, will maybe increases your risk. Just because that gene's expressed, it doesn't mean it's going to actually cause that cancer either.
Right.
So it's just the expression of the gene increases the risk. So, so you got a higher risk if the gene's expressed. You got a less risk if the gene's not expressed. And the fact that you can actually suppress these expression of these genes is where this is coming to now. So that surgery was totally unnecessary. I think it was a lot more about other things rather than actually anything to do with her being worried about getting cancer.
Because she's got that particular gene or variant of what? So then, help us then. You talk about gene expression. What are people talking about when they say gene expression? Because they're thinking, I've got this gene. If it's expressed, what does that kind of mean? And then you're saying, well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're still going to have an issue.
Well, it's transcription of the gene. So basically, your genome transcripts into the RNA, and that sends out the messenger. So we don't want to get too deep into that. Yeah. But because we want to kind of cover some other stuff today, a lot of stuff today. So the expression of the gene means that, in this case with her breast cancer, the chance, with research showing that the chance of her getting breast cancer was increased by, I believe it was 41%. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So what has more influence on the chance of getting breast cancer by a long way is the environmental toxins. Guess what environmental toxins do? Causes overexpression of that gene.
Right. Okay. All right. So then you've got genes. So if we look at genes being like software packages, if you will,
I'll go better one for you.
Transcription, yeah? Oh, please.
I got a better one for you. This one is actually, I kind of like it, but this way.
Right.
Imagine your DNA as a book.
Right. Okay. We've got a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got the book, but the DNA itself are the letters. Each letter in that book is your DNA, right?
Right. Right.
Now, the epigenetics determines how that is sequenced out to make words. If it's incorrectly sequenced, it doesn't look like anything, right? So it's about the sequencing of those letters to create certain words.
Right.
And that's where the epigenetics come into it. They come in and express certain genes in certain order, in certain ways. If you think about this, okay, your DNA in every cell in your body is the same.
Yeah. Right.
But why is your cells in your heart different to the cells in your brain? It's because of the expression of certain genes in that whole DNA sequence.
Right.
They're all the same genes.
Right. Right. So they're all reading
the way
the
they
same
express.
book. It's just certain sentences or certain
in
words.
In this case, certain sentences and certain,
words.
I'd say a sentence would be like a genome.
Sentence would be like a genome. Right.
Okay.
Okay. Because the book is all possible genes that you could have.
Well, I'd say let's say that's all your DNA pre-prescribed. Okay,
Oh,
DNA.
right. Got it.
Okay, so the whole book, the letters in the book are your DNA structure. I mean, this is very simplifying, but I find this way is kind of most people understand. And then that DNA doesn't mean that you have an understandable, readable book.
Right.
The readable book comes from the epigenetics or the expression of those genes, which epigenetic means outside or on top of the genome. So that means that it's expressed because of outside controls.
Right. Okay.
Negatively or positively.
Right. Okay. Because there's some bad words in there and there's some good words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. And you want to read, if we looked at like someone reading externally the book, just read the good words and all's cool. Yeah.
I mean, how do you determine what's good and what's bad? That's where it's coming down to now.
Okay.
So I mean, another way to think about this very simply is think about the honeybee, right?
Right.
So the DNA between a queen bee and a worker bee is identical.
Right.
You know what the only difference is?
No.
The queen bee is fed royal jelly, while the worker bees are fed the regular food supply. The royal jelly activates the genome to create the queen bee, increase the size of the abdominal, increase the ability to reproduce and so forth. So the only difference is actually an external factor, not an internal factor. The external factor is the food they're given.
Right.
Now, this is where mistakenly people think, royal jelly is good because it must be good because it's given to queen bees. Royal jelly is only effective for bees. I mean, it's basically to trigger that gene expression.
Right.
In the bees, not humans. So you aren't going to become a queen bee if you're eating royal jelly. So that's kind of like a misnomer.
So if you give that raw jelly to other bees, they can become queen bees?
Well, that's when they're in that infant stage.
Yeah. Okay. But when for humans, though, we can switch on and switch off these genes as well, can we not? Even though we've already been born?
Yeah, they're off and on all the time.
Right.
Depending on what's going on in the environment.
Right.
That's why humans are more adaptable than bees, too, because we have the ability to adapt to the environment we're in as well.
Okay. And look, things I've read too seem to say that we're only ever using about 20% of our, I think for an average human, it's like 25, 28,000, whatever, genes that we have in our full, and correct me if I'm wrong, the wrong terminology, but our full genome or our full book, the full genome. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. So we've got like, let's say 25,000 for simplicity.
25,000 is kind of, what the number is right now is 25,000.
Okay, and we're apparently using, give or take 20% of them are only ever being expressed at one point in time, give or take. Would that be about right?
Well, each cell of each part of the body. So every part of the body is going to be expressing different genes in that sequence. So remember, a brain cell is different to a heart cell, which is different to a kidney cell, which is so forth. So skin cell, So the expression, of those cells is going to be a lot different. That's where your stem cells come into it.
Okay. All right. So then epigenetics sounds environmental. Sounds like we can switch them on and switch them off. And because we're humans, we seem to be better at doing it than perhaps, well, certainly a bee or insects maybe in general. Just one side note, apparently some insects have like a shitload more genes than we have as well. They can have like 100,000 genes. I think a worm's got more than us or something. Is that right?
But they don't have, no, but they don't have the ability to, not 100, that's a lot of genes, but they don't have the ability for this transcription. They don't have the ability to turn it off all the genes and sequences like we do at that level.
Wow. Is that what separates us from the rest of the... Right, go on. We're so adaptable.
Well, yeah, adaptable. I mean, look at, look how similar we are to other primates.
Right.
Yeah, how different we are too, and the environments we can live in.
Right. Incredibly adaptable. Okay, and yet...
And another thing is that the environment can then trigger these genes as well.
Okay.
I mean, the weather itself, the climate you're in, that itself can actually trigger these genes as well. So one of the things I kind of see is that those who live in an environment that don't really get seasonal changes has a negative effect on their expression compared to those who actually experience seasonal changes.
Right.
Like living in LA compared to living in another part where LA is pretty much all the time, almost like Gold Coast. I mean, you get a few storms coming in, but like you got that constant range of temperature within that range that stays pretty constant. Where, like where I'm in Queenstown, we go from 27 degrees Celsius down to minus 10 degrees Celsius. So you get that seasonal changes. So those actually can be better for you long term.
Right. Okay. And so depending on where, so then it could be like location depending on the climate. And you said external or environmental factors. You mentioned toxins. You mentioned, I think there could be food is another environmental factor.
Food is a big one.
Exercise.
You can use it. You can use it to your benefit as well. And exercise, yes.
Right.
Especially the old fat gene can be actually basically suppressed or kind of slowed down anyway with exercise.
Interesting. Yeah, I was listening to something about that yesterday on a podcast too, how you can really get that fat gene suppressed and then the other gene up and running. Like for me, I was 20 kilos heavier about 10 years ago. And now my body seems to have found this new, I don't know, was the term homeostasis or whatever, this new scratch in the record.
Homeostasis. Yeah.
Yeah, which like if I move away from that, it's like a rubber band. It kind of tends to pull me back to, 75, 76 kilos now, rather than the fat 93 that I was years ago. Your body, food and exercise. And I've done a lot of changes lifestyle-wise, externally or environmentally as well.
Yeah, your body will always try to find that what you refer to as homeostasis, or that balance on that, particularly in body weight, depending on what you're doing. So your activity levels go up. Say you're doing more aerobic work or more strength or whatever. That shifts that point up and down.
Right.
So what exercise you're being exposed to. I mean, for example, I'm doing a little bit more aerobic-based exercise, and I'm mixing up a lot right now. Okay, so and I'm purposely dropping my body weight down a little bit too, from 100 kilos down to about 90 kilos. So I want to sit about 90 for my target, but super lean. So, of course, so the activity I'm doing will determine that set point for my body weight that's ideal for that activity I'm doing. For example, if you're trying to run a marathon, how many big marathon runners do you see doing it on a regular basis? They're all small. Why? Yeah. Because it's actually that weight is better for a marathon.
Yeah.
How many Olympic lifters or powerlifters do you see looking like a marathon runner? Because they need that structural muscle on their body. They need all that kind of dense tissue, including the connective tissue, to be able to perform what they're performing.
Right.
So the body will always adapt to the stress placed on it.
Okay. So we've got some buttons, we've got some dials that we can play with here in what we kind of want to be, but we still, we're still given a different set of software packages or DNA. that if we want to be our best selves, if you're looking at, okay, this guy's got this, and correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, right? This guy's got this DNA. And so to be the best him, he should be expressing, if we on average express about 20% within each cell, depending on what sort of cell it is, to be the best muscle cell or brain cell or whatever, he needs to be doing this. That's sort of possible today. Like we were talking about exercise, environment, etc. Is that how we can kind of be the best us? How do we do this? How can you use the best of what you got?
Well, think about this one thing. What's the one factor that is influencing health? And that's performance and health. And I kind of, that can be controlled on a genetic level, is actually inflammation.
Right.
Now, there's a genetic link to inflammation. So you can have predetermined high levels of inflammation. So you can actually suppress that gene that makes you more predisposed to inflammation. Now, if you have inflammation, that can cause effect on brain function, of course, your health, cardiovascular health, performance, everything across the board. So suppressing some of these genes involved with that might be where you want to start. Instead of looking at like trying to target too narrow down, think about the big things. Inflammation is a big factor amongst all that.
Wow. So this is like where you get a CRP, a C-reactive protein test, or an HSCRP, I think, which is more cardio-related, or checking for inflammation?
Yeah, they're useful for showing that there's inflammation present, but they're not kind of telling you underlying causes. So they may be markers that inflammation is there, or where it may be present as well, depending on the specialty of the test itself. But if you have a look at your 23andMe and other whatever else DNA test you've done, and you run it through, ideally you can get a full sequence done through Spain, but that's like going to cost you a little bit more than the 23andMe, but it's like under $1,000 still there.
Right.
So if you're having a look at that and you look at those markers particularly related to inflammation, and you see that the inflammation markers that you have, your genome sequencing is actually showing that you're more predisposed to inflammation, then you want to do things that could potentially suppress those that genome, so that you're not getting that activity occurring as much, and that will cancel out your susceptibility to having more inflammation. Now, you can get still inflammation from other factors, but it lessens maybe your inflammation response as well. So you may do something that causes your body to have an inflammation response. It could be an acute injury. It could be like dietary habits that causes inflammation for like heart risks and stuff like that. So if you can suppress that, though, then you're actually reducing that expression of that gene when there is that inflammation present too. So it doesn't cause this over-expression that causes even a greater inflammation response to the body.
Right. Okay.
And there's one common thing that some people are using, some people aren't, but they aren't using enough of it maybe, and that's curcumin. Curcumin works on multiple levels. So it does reduce inflammation, but also suppresses that gene that actually can influence the amount of the inflammation that is present.
Wow. Okay. So
curcumin's a big factor there.
Right. So turmeric. Curcumin's the medicine part of turmeric, yeah? Yeah.
So the problem with curcumin and turmeric is about the assimilation, the absorbability, the ability of your body to use it.
Right.
So that's the problem. So the transportation of the curcumin is probably an important factor. And I've talked about this last time. Was one of the better ways I find. You can take the capsule. There's different companies out there that do a very good capsule in a capsule powder form that combine it with different other nutraceuticals that allow better absorption, or liposomal. Liposomal delivery allows a very effective delivery of the curcumin as well, bypassing all those stages that will kind of slow down its ability to be absorbed. But curcumin, as I say, it is one of those. There's actually quite a number of ones we're looking at, but these polyphenols will change the way that genes expression occurs. And with curcumin, it specifically kind of does target those inflammation markers that we're looking at.
Right. Okay. So I feel comfortable now getting that from you that curcumin's not just something that everybody's marketing for $1. It actually kind of works.
Well, they're doing that too.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah.
But the important point you made is the assimilation or absorption of it in the body. So it's not going straight through you. And you mentioned liposomal probably being the best way in a capsule form.
It's usually liposomal in a liquid form. You can get them in capsule. Yeah, it's in liquid form, so it's encapsulated in the liquid form. But it's not to say that the other forms aren't necessarily good.
Right.
There is some fuzzy marketing around that.
Yep.
Like they say, our curcumin is 500 times more absorbable.
Right.
Then at the end there's small writing than turmeric. But
Yeah,
turmeric,
right.
the curcumin from turmeric is not very absorbable, so it's the comparing apples to oranges. So there's a lot of shady marketing going on. Using companies that you trust, like Middleaged, Pure Encapsulations are two I use. For the liposomal, there's a number of companies that you can look at depending on which country you're in. Quicksilver Scientific is one.
Right.
I'm trying to remember the other ones. I can't remember them off my head right now, but there are a couple of other ones.
Okay, so you said Pure Metagenics, Pure Encapsulation.
They do capsule tablet form type.
Right, and then you mentioned Quicksilver do a liposomal.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
they do. Right. They specialize in a lot of liposomal products.
Right. Okay, to get the most absorption.
Very good
quality product. Great. Okay. Awesome. All right. Now, what sort of dosage should people be taking on average, or how can they work out what they should be taking?
That's very, very individualized.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it can be anything from half the recommended dosage to 3 times the recommended dosage.
Right.
You got to kind of, it varies a lot. Remember, the recommended dosage for liposomal is going to be different for the tablet and capsule too, because the absorption rate is going to be higher. So you've got to take all these factors into account there.
Okay.
So just giving a recommendation of the dosage is going to vary on the individual. I just tell people, as a general on a show like doing what we're doing, I say people start with the recommended dosage on the bottle.
Yep.
And then work from there. If you feel, like give it a couple of weeks. If you're not seeing much change, bump it up. If you see really good results, then stay with it. Or you can even temper it off a little bit and see how that reacts too. So, I mean, the best kind of case is just start with the recommended dosage. But often those recommended dosages, also part of marketing is how many servings per bottle. So sometimes if you look at the research, it could be 5 times more used in the actual studies that were looking at that compound.
Right. Okay.
So go back, look at some of the studies. Don't look at the abstracts, look at the actual studies and see what the dosaging they use to create that effect in the study. Yeah. And it may be a lot different to what being marketed. And some of that also is determined by different countries have different limits on these nutrients sold in supplement form. So they may have to do that just because, for example, Australia may have a certain restriction on how much curcumin or whatever ingredient could be in that one serving. So that they have to make the serving size a certain size just to fit in with regulations of that country.
Right.
Well, these dictatorships like to come in and kind of regulate this natural kind of health field.
Yeah. They sometimes don't want people being, dare I say, maybe too healthy if they're only driven by dollars. Who knows what the agenda may be, but maybe.
Well, it's not big profit in it compared to pharmaceuticals too. You may have 50, 200%, 300% markup on supplementation if you're looking directly from manufacturer to retail, but if you look at pharmaceuticals, for example, the US, you got 200,000-300,000% markup.
Jeez, unbelievable.
So
follow the money. Protecting industry. All right. So great one for inflammation. Now CRP and HSCRP for measuring inflammation. What's the difference? One's more about cardio, the high sensitive one, HS, or?
Well, I would only go for the HS anyway. Yeah, just because it does kind of, they use it more for cardio testing, but it actually is a general inflammation marker, but it gives you a better marker. But so use the HS for sure, the high sensitivity. I mean, for most basic panels, that would be a standardized test. That should be a standardized test, I think, now worldwide. I know in the US, I know in New Zealand it is. I assume it is in Australia too. So
Yeah.
I think now it's becoming a standardized on a panel now, these days.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should be getting their CRP tested in nice sort of layman's advice, regularly. I mean, I'm checking mine every quarter, and you've got to have a reading below 1, I think, is a general recommendation to be sort of classed as, yep, you're cool, very little inflammation. You get above 1, you start to get a little concern, or it start to draw a bit of attention, especially if it's for a long period of time, right? Because when you're talking chronic disease, we're talking, what is it, chronic? I think the definition, I was speaking to Anne about this the other day, 8 to 12 months. It goes from being an acute issue to actually being a chronic issue, and beyond. And of course, a lot of us have been abusing our bodies, not knowing it, or knowing it and just being irresponsible.
That 10,
too. 10, 15 years, right? So if we're looking at then getting back to epigenetics, and we want to express the best sort of within each cell, right? Then let's look at the number 1 killer on the planet right now. It's heart disease, closely followed by cancer. So if we're talking heart disease and we're talking epigenetics, then what perhaps should someone do epigenetically if they've got these dials they can shift to be able to reduce their risk of getting heart disease?
Well, I mean, lifestyle is a big factor there, but because we're talking about epigenetics, so what we're looking at doing is, specifically with this, is we're wanting to basically prevent these genes expressing themselves. Okay.
Right.
So, so the genes that may be present that will increase your risk factors for cardiovascular disease, which is, as you say, is a big one. Cancer is also a big one up there on par, depending on how. Remember, in the US, if you're a cancer, you actually counted as a cancer survivor if you're over 5 years. Cancer, like they say, if you live more than 5 years, you're a cancer survivor. Even though you might die at 10 years or 7 years, you're still counted in the statistics. So if you actually look at cancer rates and death, it's actually higher than it truly is. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it's on par with cardiovascular disease, maybe even higher in some cases, depending on how they analyze that information. Because cardiovascular disease is pretty broad as well.
Right.
So that encompasses
what is it?
Quite a bit of stuff.
I mean, people think I've got heart disease because I've got restricted endotheliums or arteries or veins or the pipes. The pipes are restricted beyond a certain percentage, 50% or 60%. Occluded. So what tends to be the general definition of heart disease so people can understand?
Well, I'm saying cardiovascular disease because cardiovascular is that broad spectrum, which is the one they use, which is just beyond just the heart itself too. So those two factors, those two diseases are kind of huge factors we want to look at. Now, when we're talking about cardiovascular diseases, which is probably close to home for you, is we want to make sure. I haven't seen your DNA testing yet, but we have they identified any markers there, genes that are present that could be a higher risk factor for cardiovascular disease?
When I've actually had that checked, no. It was more stomach for me when I had some general recreational DNA test done. There tend to be higher percentage, tend to be more bowel sort of based. Heart, no. And there's no traces of it in my family history either. And I've never had any symptoms.
Don't worry about family history because they may not express that gene. You may have the gene still, but they not expressed it. Right.
There we go. Okay.
So we could have a look at some of the raw data. I mean, remember those testings don't test your entire DNA sequence. So we can take what we can from that data, like 23andMe, we can get the raw data file and we can analyze that and look at if there are any particular genes present that could have you at a higher risk, okay? Because then that will tell us, we want to do things that could suppress these. I mean, often these things help anyway, like I was saying with curcumin, help with inflammation along other pathways as well. But there's things like, you heard of EGCG, which is from tea. That's the compound from tea. That's another polyphenol that's very helpful in cardiovascular diseases and stuff like that as well. And that is useful for that whole gene suppression as well, what we're looking at. So when we're looking at food or these supplements, and we can use food as well, just supplements gives us a little bit more control of dosaging and the way and when we take it. So, if we look at the kind of the big ones that are present in fruit and vegetables, you're looking at the EGCG, you're looking at curcumin, you're looking at resveratrol, and you're looking at quercetin. Now, quercetin from your citrus fruit, resveratrol everybody knows from your wine, grapes. And then, big marketed. It's been well marketed. And then curcumin, of course, is from your turmeric, which is your curries and stuff like that. So you can use this in a food sense. But then it is dose related. So we may need to create a suppression of a gene at the time. We may need a higher specialized dosage temporarily. And that's where we can use these to create either we're looking at maybe DNA methylation or histone modification. We can use one or the other, depending on the type of nutrient we're taking in or the food we're taking in, and we can create that crossover that allows us to kind of control those genes or the gene expression.
Right. Okay. So there's
there's an overlapping too. So I was just saying is that DNA methylation and histone modification, there's an overlap of the nutrients in the foods that actually do that too. So some of the foods will do both, some will do one or the other more.
Right. Okay. All right. So I want to talk to you a bit about gene editing a little later on as well. Things like CRISPR-Cas9. We'll talk about that a bit later. But just getting to your point, you're talking about earlier on, and I just want to make sure we could have find a point on this for people. You mentioned still about under $1,000 to get all of your genes tested, because all of these different companies are not measuring you for all the genes that are known to be in a human. They're getting subsets, and these subsets that they're testing for, correct?
Yeah, some of that's because of regulation too.
Right.
Because remember, 23andMe got hit about 5 years ago. 23andMe got hit. And they aren't allowed to say certain things about information about certain genes. They aren't allowed to say this gene has been predisposed to different diseases and stuff like that. So that's why, one, they don't do the whole sequencing in part is because of regulations of how much they can do and how much information they can give out. When you go, often what happens in some countries, and it's worldwide on here, so it depends on where you are. Some countries, if they do a full sequence DNA, they want to give you a basic psych evac before they go through the whole process to make sure you're ready to receive the information. Because, you might get some, it's going to say, oh, this causes cancer, this causes cancer. And then they have to sit down with you and explain, well, yes, the gene is present, but it doesn't mean that they go through what we're talking about now. It doesn't mean as expressed. It means that these lifestyle changes can prevent that from being expressed. So these are things you want to do. So it's a little more hands-on, one-on-one type thing they need to do when they do more in-depth analysis and provide information of what's going on.
Right. And so like this test you mentioned in Spain for under $1,000 will test you for what? For all of your whole, genome, your whole book?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
I believe it's about $1,000. I think it's around $1,000 US.
$1,000. All right.
Yeah.
And that's going to be everything. Okay.
I didn't pay for it, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Of course, I'd expect you not to pay for it, being in your game.
Well, I got a contribute, but yeah. So yeah, I didn't have to pay for it.
Okay. All right.
So that's why I'm not 100% sure. But last time I checked, I thought it was around about that.
Right. Okay. So just want people.
Remember, it used to be $10,000. Used to be.
Yeah. It's been coming down incredibly, right?
Yeah.
So it's great people get access to this now, but I just want to make sure people understand that you're only ever getting a subset, depending on country, depending on regulation, depending on company that you're getting tested with. You're going to get different types of genes tested for your $200, $300. You want everything done, then something like Spain and other countries will have the comprehensive test that they can do, yeah?
Yeah, but then if you go into one of these companies, they kind of specialize, like the Fit one, DNA Fit, they're specializing for a certain aspect of the market. So they don't need to test everything because they're not looking at all the other stuff. They're looking specifically for the fitness market or the health market, that field of the market. So they're not kind of having to worry about all these other gene sequences that are not involved with what they're directly involved with and what they're allowed to actually talk about too.
Right. Okay. All right. So then with the genes, you say, okay, well, we don't want to be switching on the bad genes. Now, let's talk about the bad genes. They're the ones that, like, as cells divide, genes kind of mutate, yeah, or whatever. And
no. Well, that's when you're causing damage to the DNA with cell division.
Right.
These genes, bad genes, they call just genes that may be present that predisposes you to different conditions and so forth. So it's not, these genes don't occur because of damage through cellular division.
Right.
Cellular division damage is a little different, and that's where you actually start looking at other cellular damage caused, like cancers can come from that too. So that's a whole different kind of rabbit hole to go down. So these bad genes, you have them. I mean, they're there in your gene sequence. It's whether you want them turned off or on.
Right.
Unfortunately, these days, if you look at the average, and I'm just using America for example because I lived there and I saw, if you look at the average American lifestyle, that kind of pretty much turning a lot of those genes on. And when you have a look at the cancer rate in America, you look at cardiovascular disease rates, and this is after all their so-called interventions that they've had with that. Look at Alzheimer's rates. Look at
autoimmune.
Autoimmune is a massive one now. It's actually exploding right now.
Right.
And that's also in part with other factors with the environment, in there as well. With up there, it's getting worse with the environmental chemicals and everything.
Right.
Autism even has that factor in there. Now, people say, oh, well, it's linked to vaccines. Well, yeah, certainly can be, because you can give a vaccine to one child, they don't get the autism spectrum. You give it to another child, they do get an autism spectrum. Maybe it's because that child has a certain genome that switches on with the adjuvants in the vaccine that causes that to turn on. And that's why, and a lot of studies are flawed too, because they've never done a actually peer-reviewed controlled study with a placebo. So when they've always done the safety studies, they've already done, okay, this is not completely unvaccinated. They still give vaccines to the other children. They're just using one vaccine they leave out. So they never researched that very deeply. So to say that vaccines don't cause autism is just
bullshit.
Incredibly, well, it's incredibly, I'd say it's
inaccurate.
Politely, inaccurate. Because they haven't done the research on it. We know that there is a potential there with autism in certain gene markers, and they can be caused expression through certain adjuvants found in these vaccines. So, there could be a link, and it may not be everybody. It depends on your genetic makeup and whether you, and even if that gene's expressed, it doesn't mean necessarily that you'll get it either.
Right, as you were saying before about the BRCA gene and Angelina Jolie. But it's interesting, though, point you bring up, because I think they're looking at making immune inoculations and so on compulsory in Australia, and that if you don't, there's some risk of not getting Medicare. Yet you're talking about how you can perhaps fix one thing, but the collateral damage is it takes out or causes a problem somewhere else. It's a bit of a blunt instrument.
There is information out there, and they should be doing this, is that you can actually do a test on a child, and they know certain markers already. They don't know them all, but they know certain markers already. That means that child could be predisposed to damage caused by the vaccine. So why not do these tests? Why? Money.
It's being driven by which industry, I wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
And the government's agenda, who knows? Right. I mean, for me, penicillin. I found out that I'm allergic to penicillin. You know, people think, oh my God, it's there to save lives. Not necessarily mine.
No, exactly. It's exactly the same.
Right.
We're talking about one person's food is another person's poison.
Bingo. Right. So, okay. Now,
like me and eggplant.
Oh, is that right?
Eggplant. Well, I mean, it doesn't agree with me, put it that way.
Okay. Remind me never to throw an eggplant at you, Pete. So, inflammation then is happening because of, and once again, epigenetics, and epi being the Greek word, proud to say, meaning kind of outside or environmental around the genes. So then inflammation occurs, and to your point about one man's poison is another man's medicine, let's say, inflammation starts to occur in a particular gene or whatever. What's the correlation between inflammation and the environmental factors around a gene?
Well, the environmental factors could trigger that gene to express.
Express.
So be expressed. So it you get the transcription over to RNA, and then that increases your potential for inflammation. So when there's some kind of presence of a factor that causes inflammation in your body, it may be a greater response to that than you would normally get.
Right.
Or you're going to always have or you're predisposed to a low-grade inflammation all the time, because we're always exposed to crap all the time. So now this could be an acute injury when you damage something acutely, twist your knee, whatever. That's acute injury, you get inflammation response.
Yep.
That whole cascade that occurs could be an over cascade. And then the inflammation can carry over to autoimmune as well. There is that crossover there too.
Right. And autoimmune isn't actually perhaps a disease in itself. It's all the other diseases that have names, like perhaps what's an example? Autism, others that are actually caused by autoimmune.
Yeah, I mean, it's autoimmune. Well, a little bit. Autoimmune is really looking at whether your body dysregulation of the immune system. I guess that's kind of the easiest way to do it, because it's kind of, again, it's going down another broad avenue when you talk about the immune system and talking about autoimmune issues. Yeah. Generally, they're talking about over response to a situation or a stimuli from the autoimmune system that causes that overstimuli, which is what probably in your case with penicillin. You can get you can also get an under expression where when you do need it, it doesn't occur. Right.
Interesting.
But mostly when they're talking about autoimmune, they're talking about their over response.
Yeah. Sort of it's acting on itself. It's like I've heard that like the
celiac disease.
System, celiac disease, right? Where it's getting constantly hit by, and I think recently there was an article you pointed my way around glyphosate. No one's a celiac. We're all
gluten. Well, that's gluten tolerance.
Gluten, sorry. Yeah, gluten intolerance. It's actually glyphosate intolerance.
Potentially, yeah. I'm running out of battery here too. Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm okay.
You good?
No. Well, if I drop off, I'll have to swap over to the phone, okay? We can come back.
No worries.
But you stay on here and I'll rejoin.
Yeah, we'll do. So where I want to take this then, when we're talking about our genes and our DNA, now let's say the average human, as we said, is about 25,000, but then I want to go into the relationship this has with what we call the microbiome. Mm-hmm. And we've got all these bugs that are on us, and I think we have like 70% of them in our stomachs. The stomach. There's like bacteria. Most of them are good guy bacteria.
Every cell of your body, actually.
How much?
Every cell of your body.
Okay. I think we have an equivalent number of human cells to like a microbiome type.
Oh no, we're outnumbered by a long way.
By a long way, right? So you wonder how much of us are actually, how human we actually are, right?
Well, if you measure it on that scale, yeah.
Right. I think we're like maybe, I don't know, what, 10%? I'm taking a rough guess here of all the cells that we're actually have a symbiotic relationship with.
Mm-hmm. We're very much more alien than we are human. Alien being not that kind of alien, but alien as in not human.
Right.
And that is, you're right. That does make a huge difference to many factors, and that's like looking at childbirth for starters. Was the child, or were you born through cesarean or vaginal birth? Because that is massive. And if you are born through cesarean, there's a lot of stuff you're going to have to do to try to compensate for that.
Isn't that? I mean, it's just crazy, right? To hear that, and I'm thinking, what difference does it make? Yet, I mean, I was listening to a podcast again yesterday on the flight, where that leave that white sort of, it dries kind of white stuff on you as a baby, which is that biome from the vaginal birth, which is really important to protect, to create that whole immune kind of layer. And heard about mice that are born without any microbiome, and for testing and so on, and which is kind of incredible. And diversity. The more different bugs you can get exposed to, and you get a bit of temporary sort of inflammation, you adapt and you become stronger in health.
There's another thing with children too. The over-sterilization of the environment. you get some mothers that are over cleaning everything, everything's spotless. Don't let your child eat dirt. Your child eats dirt in the environment it's in because it's getting adapting to that microbiome in that region that you were in.
Yep.
You know, it's a wonder why so many kids have so many different allergies these days.
Oh God! Let alone the immunology, let alone the immunizations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let alone that, but I mean, just because they aren't exposed to the environment directly. Because I remember when I was a kid, Jesus Christ! I mean, being outside in the middle of winter, running around in mud and crap, and nowadays it's just not done. Well, not on the same scale anyway. I mean, definitely, I've seen the changes that they're using all these antimicrobial wipes. What are they called? The ones that I've seen. What the wipes.
Wet wipes.
Well, wet wipes is an example, but there's one specific one I was talking about, which is really it's like clinical style. It's really a strong one. But yeah, they got all these different wipes that you use and wipe down all these surfaces and stuff and keep it clean. I mean, there is an understandability to that, especially when you're going out to like a supermarket. You wipe down the trolley for that purpose.
Yeah.
It makes sense. If you're going to put your child in the trolley, wipe it down, or even for yourself. I mean, you don't know who's slobbered on that. So that's a little bit different. But when you start doing it, around your whole environment, I mean, my daughter playing with the dogs and cats and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think her chances of being allergic to cats and dogs? Probably pretty low.
Minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're talking like having a dog helps with their biome mixing in with yours.
Yeah, I mean, with her pulling the hair out of that, then,
right,
she's probably eating half the hair as well. And,
right, and she's just adapting, getting stronger. What are these alcoholic, all these little bloody alcoholic things that you see everywhere? People are in there sort of like just cleaning
hand sterilizers,
right. I mean, that's what we're going overboard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they need it for food prep and stuff like that. Right. I can understand it, but people are doing it in their homes.
Yeah,
this is the opportunity for you to be exposed to that stuff in your home to a certain extent. I say one thing. Okay, one thing though.
Yeah.
This little thing here.
Yeah.
Probably has more bacteria than your toilet seat.
Oh my God. And that's
okay.
Not good.
So, I kind of wipe my phone down every day.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's a little bit the wrong kind of bacteria. It's ones you don't want exposed to either.
Right.
When we're going to go down an avenue here, something that people aren't aware of, the purpose of a toilet seat, the toilet seat cover.
Right.
What's the purpose of a toilet seat cover?
It's a little more comfortable. I don't know.
No, the lid that goes on top of that.
Oh, well, I guess to stop the germs getting out?
Yeah, when you flush. What happens when you flush?
Oh, sprays
all the germs
everywhere.
go in there.
It becomes airborne.
The germs, yeah. That's what the lid's for.
Right.
How many people put the lid down when they flush?
Not many, if any. I don't. I watch the water, sort of like I watch the whole thing go on, making sure everything departs.
You want to see which part of the... Yeah. Thanks for that.
Okay.
You get a lot of floating, do you?
I have been busted occasionally.
So, and then you've got to think about how many people take these into the bathroom, the toilet, and then start doing this while they're doing their business.
Right. Oh, and then it goes on to there, and then you're putting that near your... Oh, my God. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap.
And we're not talking about bacteria you actually... Yeah, I mean, this is bacteria you don't want to be exposed to. So, I mean, we're getting a little off track with the epigenetics, but it is a factor that bacterium that you've been exposed to also can cause epigenetic adaptation too.
Right.
That's why the environment, come back to an environment.
Okay. So, and that's where you go, like these cleaners where you say we've got it in the house, or some people are so anal, so to speak, on cleaning everything too much, or you've got kids that are being cesarean born, not getting enough of these sorts of germs. Now, let's look at antibiotics and these hand sterilizers. Mm-hmm. Would you call that, would that be a sort of like a parallel to, okay, it's like when you put that antibiotics in your stomach where you've got like, I don't know, 70, 80% of your flora, your bugs that you symbiotically need to be healthy, that not only you're wiping out perhaps the pathogen ones, the bad dudes, but you're also through the fallout nuking a whole lot of the good guys. And hence we start to get these autoimmune issues that are starting to develop. And then you look at a big antibiotic called glyphosate. Was only ever approved as an antibiotic, my understanding is, which is, Roundup, which has been in the headlines. So antibiotics...
They lost that $280 million lawsuit or something, right?
Yeah, recently in Australia, I think, the US. So the precedent's been set. Yeah, so then every country's now checking out this glyphosate thing. But antibiotics, same deal, yeah? I mean, would you advise anybody to take antibiotics?
I mean, there's time and place, but they're probably one of the most overprescribed. Now, they're used for cases when they're not needed as well. Antibiotic means what?
Right.
For bacterial infections, and they're given to people with viral infections as well. I've seen it over and over.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to work. It's not going to do anything other than suppress the immune system further, because remember, a lot of your immune system comes from the gut as well. So taking antibiotics has a negative effect that way, and often it's not necessary. I mean, there's a lot of natural alternatives that you can use. You know, nanoparticle silver is very effective for that, for low-grade infections and stuff, even for the common cold, very effective. So the overprescription of antibiotics is kind of, again, it's coming back on us now anyway, with all these antibiotic-resistant strains that are coming out now.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be a point where antibiotics aren't going to be useful anymore anyway.
Because?
Well, even all the bugs are going to be antibiotic resistant.
Right.
I mean, over time, these bacterial adapt to they adapt too, and that's why you're getting all these new these antibiotic resistant strains coming out now, because of the fact that they're adapting to all the big part for that is actually in animal feed and the feedlots and in the industrial farming, because they and we'll know about that with the chicken farming. They just pump them all full of, they're just in their feed, there's just antibiotics left on.
Antibiotics, right, which we're then consuming.
Well, not only are we consuming, but remember, this antibiotics is getting into the environment and creating bugs that get resistant to it.
Right. So, geez, what's going to happen then when we don't have antibiotics that work anymore?
We've got to look at other alternatives, and luckily, we have alternatives.
Right.
They aren't very profitable because they're mostly natural, but there are alternatives that some people will know about. So what are you going to do then? Yeah, you're going to look at natural alternatives, or they're going to have to look at some other new pharmaceutical drug they can make more money out of.
Yeah, right. Okay. So then you mentioned this nano silver. I mean, what is that known as?
You got colloidal silver, and then you got silver hydrosol. There's a different name, but if you look up silver, and it comes in like a water form, because there's different forms of it. A nanoparticle size, very small, and that's used for antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal even. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
I use it all the time.
Is there any name or any brand that you would suggest or recommend use?
Most of them are pretty good if you get it from a reputable company. I mean, trying to think of top of my head a couple of the companies. We get one local here. I used to buy it in the US from company up in the US. I think even Middleaged does one now. But
Middleaged? Get on Middleaged?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But there's if you get one from one of these Doctors Only brands like Epigenetics, you can't generally buy off the shelf at a store. They are generally looking at pretty good quality. Don't necessarily get caught up on the parts per million. It has how many parts per million? Yeah, more is not better necessarily for that.
Right.
And there's a big myth about that too. Talk about the blue man.
Oh yeah.
You heard about that? The guy turned bluish grey because he took too much silver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's actually dead now, not related, but if you take a high dosage, it can cause your skin to go grey blue. But what you got to talk about first he was taking a homemade brew, which was he wasn't using nanoparticle size. He was using like crappy stuff.
Right.
He was taking a dosage equivalent to a bottle, not just a drop. You meant to use droppers, but a whole bottle per day for several years.
Oh my God.
So his dosaging was 10,000 times more on a low-grade product that he was making at home. So people kind of use that, say, oh, look, this causes this. Well, yeah, if you're making it at home with crappy stuff and you're taking a dosage, 10,000 times the recommended dosage, then yeah. Try taking 10 times the recommended dose of aspirin and see what happens.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I bet you the pharmaceutical industry got hold of that particular article with that guy.
Well, from my understanding, is actually they paid him to be a voice out against silver.
Oh, jeez. Right. Okay.
From my understanding.
Behind the scenes. Yep. Follow the money. Okay. So I want to connect this back into epigenetics, and the reason I wanted to go into the bugs and the microbiome is because they have a huge number of DNA, and like you said, we're almost the alien in this ecosystem, right, of cells. And these cells have this symbiotic relationship. They depend on each other, but their DNA and epigenetic expression as well, how does that play? I mean, we've got to keep these guys happy, keep the good bacteria guys happy, do we not?
Yeah, their DNA presence is actually what creates, the environment for us, say, for example, in the gastrointestinal system, that, to create that whole balance there. Yeah. We can't survive without it. You're drinking coffee.
I am.
Good
Organic.
Man.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah, we should talk a bit about caffeine because there's so much confusion on that one.
Coffee, DNA methylation, and histone modification.
The double whammy.
Yeah.
Woo! Get it on.
Okay, so actually kind of going off a little bit with the bacterial DNA, this is where you kind of start looking at GMO as well. Because remember, the DNA's structure's been changed. How is that going to influence expression of certain genes in your body?
Yes, please tell us.
We don't know. We don't know. That's the whole point. There's never been any research study done on it. How do we know?
So we're taking a big risk, for all we know.
Huge. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's other factors towards the risk of GMOs, but that's another factor to take into consideration. How is this going to change the expression of certain genes?
Well, then, and how do we digest it? I mean, if they've made it, because they're GMO to be more resilient, are they not, to insects and increase yield of crops? But then how can we digest it, therefore, if it's so resilient?
We've got a very powerful digestive system. Your stomach acid breaking down proteins, it's very effective. Hydrochloric acid, very effective at breaking down those peptide bonds. And then, when you get down to the intestinal system, you've got the enzymatic breakdown as well. Those enzymes just attack it and break it down. So it's not really, if you have a healthy gut and you're producing enough hydrochloric acid and enzymes, then you shouldn't have too much problem. It's more, okay, once we break it down, that DNA structure could cause certain triggers that we have unknown about.
So that's where the issue is with the GMOs. Like, once we do break it down, because, we still can, as long as we've got a healthy gut, we're releasing these strands of DNA that could then relate with ours, and we don't know what the hell it's going to do. Is that right?
There is no research on it.
There's no research on it. So
I think the longest safety study they've done on GMO is 12 weeks. That's the longest. I believe. Maybe different now, but this was a couple of years ago, last time I checked up on it, and I don't think it's changed since then. It was like 12 weeks was the longest safety.
We're all eating it.
Well, not all of us, but some are.
Right, some are. Okay. All right, maybe not you.
Well, there's not. I mean, even in Australia, how much GMO you have in Australia now? Is it a lot?
I don't know, Pete. I mean, I see it. I just don't trust anything that's in a grocery shop these days. Unless I've seen.
You just find what country it comes from. You just look at the country where it comes from.
Right.
It comes from the US. Don't eat it.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's definitely going to be GMO, right?
Well, if it's things like if it's got soy or corn in it, then 100% sure. And then you've got all the other, you got all the other crops, because the cross contamination of those crops is massive. So even if it says it's not GMO, chances are there's some cross contamination there anyway, with soy and corn. So corn's out of the question. Not that I would recommend those as a food anyway. And then, you're looking at all the other crops there. There could be potentially cross contamination there. Tomatoes even have that. To a lesser degree, those aren't massive markets for those, but so if you're buying something more local, GMO legal to grow in Australia? I don't think so, right?
Well, hell, I know we certainly.
You import the products.
We import the products. I don't know if we're growing it. I don't know if we're growing it. Actually,
we're not. There's a lot of countries that are banning it. One of the first countries to ban it, Russia.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's an American
Because
product, or because?
No, they knew what was going on.
Oh my God! Right.
Guess what was actually you couldn't get in Russia for a long time? Microwave ovens. They were banned because of the risk, health risk.
Then what changed? Where all of a sudden they let them in?
Americanization.
Right. Okay.
But it's not widely used. I mean, if you go to Russia, you aren't going to see. Like you go to you rent an apartment in LA, for example.
Yeah.
Everyone I've ever seen has got a microwave oven in it. You do the same thing in Russia. Well, in St. Petersburg, for example, you go and rent an apartment there. Chances are it's not going to have a microwave.
Jeez, I've got one here. So what's the microwave? It's like same thing as getting an X-ray and breaking down
not
your
quite,
DNA.
not quite that level. Right. It's like your mobile phone type thing. You get continuous exposure, but also then it's actually creating changes to the structure of the food that you're eating as well.
In what way?
Well, it can damage the DNA of the structure of the food you're eating.
Right. Okay. And that will affect you because...
Well, you're altering DNA. It's not much different from GMO, is it? In that way that, there's unknown DNA sequences or damaged DNA. So you're damaging the food. I mean, I never use microwaves. I actually have one here because when we bought the house, I mean, it was in the house. We bought all the furniture. It was already in here. But it's not even plugged in, and it's like...
Yeah, I've never seen you use it.
No. I mean, it's in the... You'd probably even know where it was. There's someone in the cupboards up there, which is not even used. Yeah.
Okay, so I better not use my microwave anymore then. All right, no heating with the microwave.
How much are you using your microwave?
Well, I haven't used it that much, apart from like some meals that I'm getting where I've been actually heating. I've been getting, I've actually been getting epigenetic, like food that's supposed to be genetics, and then sticking it in a zapper to probably kill all the benefits. I now learn.
You're probably not helping it.
Yeah,
you're probably not helping it.
Back under the saucepan and doing it properly, the old way. Well, I learned something. All right.
I think nowadays, most people don't cook with it. I think most people just reheat with it.
That's what I'm doing. It's just reheating, but even then, it's not
I think
great,
that's more.
Right?
Yeah, not at all. But I think back in when it came out, 1980s, 90s.
That was like the thing, the new thing, and easy cooking quickly, and that was the big thing. All right, so then once again, getting back to epigenetics, and like I was saying, my foods I have they're delivered by a service that I have here that I'm pilot testing. I've got some that have just rolled up this morning. But the food menu recipes, I'm getting it clean. And as you know, I'm now on fish. I've become a pescatarian from having been plant-based. Not a vegan, but just being plant-based for plant-based reasons. And that's the food that PH 360, Personal Health 360, that I use as a basis for programs that I have for helping people to get more epigenetic focus, express the best themselves with food and exercise. That's getting delivered. So what is that doing for me? What does that actually mean? These foods that are more epigenetically aligned with who I am, to express the best me.
Well, I have to look at the menu, but let me kind of break some down for you here.
Okay.
So we talked about the DNA methylation. We talked about the histone modification. So these things, two pretty big factors involved with the expression of the gene. Okay. So looking at those, we're looking at, as I said, there's some foods that cross over there too. So for DNA methylation, things like tomatoes, apples, different citrus fruits as well can have an effect on DNA methylation. Now, if you look at histone modification, you're looking at cashews, which aren't truly a nut, but cashew nuts. Grapes, remember resveratrol? Okay, grapes are there. Garlic's a big one. Love
all of those.
Yeah, has to be fresh though. Garlic fresh is important. That one there.
Right.
And then you got the crossover foods, which is things like you got turmeric. Do not remember here. One I don't like, soybean. Well, then you got soybean, which has compounds in there. But they say soybean because it's the highest, but you can actually get it from other sources too. You got coffee we talked about, which is a combo.
Awesome.
Important.
Organic, if you can. Organic,
organic.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, cinnamon, which is actually
love it.
cinnamonic acid. No, not cinnamon.
Oh,
Cinnamon. It's cinnamonic acid. So that's found in most vegetables, though. That's found in a lot of vegetables, a lot of stuff.
right.
It's basically a building block for a lot of these other compounds too, though. So that,
Okay.
and then the teas we talked about before.
Yeah.
Tea, that coming from
Green tea.
Yeah, green tea particularly very high in the EG, CG, black tea, green
White tea.
Depends on what the tea is. I don't know about white tea, but
Okay.
black tea and green tea is the same plant anyway.
Right. Okay.
It's just the processing of it and when it's picked and stuff. But green tea tends to be much higher in the EG, CG, also regions where it's grown too. Broccoli is another factor, which everybody knows about broccoli. So those ones are your combo ones that kind of cross over. So if you do your menu kind of including ones of each group, then you're going to get some of that expression you're looking at suppressing of certain bad genes. You may get it from that. Now, if you're targeting specific stuff that you've seen in your DNA test, then you might want to look at the supplemental form of these because of the dosage gene does reflect the amount of suppression you're looking at.
Right.
So with DNA methylation or histone modification, there's just 2 out of 6. There are actually 6 different primary ways, epigenetic adaptation occurs. But talking about DNA methylation to keep it simple and histone modification, just to keep it simple.
Okay.
Yeah. So those foods. What's one of your foods? Show us one.
Oh, my foods? Jeez. What do we,
you got someone there to grab one for you?
Yeah, just hold on. I'll grab one. Just hold on.
Okay. Yeah, Matt. Yeah, extract is really good. You got some really good extracts out there. Even Life Extension does a really good product actually, and I think there's a few other good brands out there.
Okay.
Organic if you can. Sorry, I was just talking to Matt there.
Okay. So, okay. Hey, Matty.
But you can talk back.
Now, I've got 2 types here. The reason why is that Anne's also done the pH 360, and she's very much, a lot of the results came back for her being a meat eater. Interestingly, whether you believe the blood type diet or not, she's an O blood type. I'm an AB positive. So when I also check O and AB positive versus the pH 360 epigenetic analysis, where we've measured up, phenotype, for me, it's very...
sorry, hang on, Matt, yes, we're talking about DNA methylation, but also talking about histone modification, which is 2 ways that we use epigenetics to control the expression of the genome. So anyway, carry on.
Right. So for me, I'm very veg-based, and a lot of results came up around fish. Interestingly, my heritage, if I take a heritage diet point of view, being Greek, very much fishermen, fish, and no dairy, lactose intolerant like most of the world, as you've also said, unless you're Northern European, of which tends to be Anne's background more so. So she tends to be more lactose tolerant, and her DNA fit test also said the same, where she's okay with that. I'm not good with dairy. But food-wise, I mean, here's one, and there's a company. Which way?
It's going to be backwards. It's going to be backwards, so you're going to have to read it to us.
Oh, God. Okay. So, Mediterranean wrap. So we've got some zucchini, capsicum, tomatoes, dried tomatoes, and some sort of a tahini, I think, kind of sauce and whatever in there. And the wraps aren't in there, so I have to make sure it's a grain-free wrap. And then for Anne, we've got spiced steak. She's got some good old red meat, and a lot of hers have meat. She's got some potatoes, some sort of peas or whatever in there, sliced up, bit of yogurt, bit of dairy. So hers is quite different to mine, and they are according to a lot of the recipes, and you can have excellent, good, average, avoid within pH 360. And it's really cool because you can pick what you want for all the days. It then gives you a planner, gives all of the recipe, and actually then a consolidated shopping list. I give that to my guy here at Fit Fuel Plus. Once again, we're just piloting this right now. He hasn't gone broad on this yet, so don't go hassling the guy on this right now. He's only in Brisbane, the Gold Coast. I want to see how we can get him across the rest of the country. But yeah, these are all prepped, made. I can be lazy, put them in the zapper, or I can take them out and actually heat them the good old normal way, which just seems like I want to start doing now.
I'd be interested to understand how they're determining they're working on the epigenetic aspect with dark, because a lot of the ingredients are there would be purely focused on pretty much DNA methylation, and I'm wondering if how they're matching it to your DNA sequences too, and how they're working on that. But they could be looking at foods more avoiding foods that are triggers for you, which can cause expression of these genes. So maybe that's what they're doing, is avoiding foods that could cause expression of bad genes that we're talking about before. So maybe that's where they're looking at it. I'd be interested to see. Have you had them on before?
Yeah. I had Cam McDonald on for
Cam,
remember?
The guy who's doing the food itself.
Well, no, that's Chad.
But he's doing it basically based on pH 360.
Well, he is pH 360.
Okay.
He works for so he does the global education, and he's the CEO for ANZ. So had him on a very interesting podcast come FB Live, which got some good circulation. It'd be great to get you both. Interestingly, on the same. We can't do it on FB Live yet with more than 2 people, but maybe on a Zoom we could do something. And I'd love to see you guys kind of debate it out on, how this kind of works and how beneficial it is. Would be very, very interesting.
You just be a fly on the wall.
I'll just create trouble. I'm just going to throw in a few hand grenades and let you guys go.
That's my job. That's my job.
Yeah, well, I get to play. I get to play the troll, so I just cause problems between you guys. So
Matt was
the
saying
US
here
does it between different countries.
Well, yeah, they're very good at that. Matt was saying here about geographic heritage, but Matt, you got to remember a couple of problems is that
I just where we're growing up. While you talk.
Okay, so Matt, where we're growing up has a big factor. So you've already created that adaptation to the environment you're already growing up in, and a lot of people are, like say hybrids, but are crossbred. So you do have a lot of crossover breeding. I mean, you don't have any pure genome, especially in Western European style genetic makeup. But I mean, okay, you got someone from China or something like that. You see, an interesting factor here for me here is my wife is actually Chinese, but born in Mexico. So her geographic and American accent, but her geographic is entirely different to her genetic heritage, which is Chinese, which is an entirely different environment than Mexico. So she'd been brought up in Mexico, which is actually in Guadalajara, which is, again, different environment, high altitude too. So there's a lot of factors you've got to take into account. If you do find someone in the environment, with their pure genetic trait, then there's more narrowing you can do. That is true. So, you can narrow it down for them. But if you're looking at it like you're based in the US, you're going to have such a huge mix coming in, exposed to so many different things that it's kind of really hard to tell that. And that's where I like to use we did one new was the metabolic typing, is identifying the individual. And this is not the metabolic typing seen on the book, commercial book, whatever. This is entirely different. This was actually used for cancer treatment. But the metabolic typing helps us kind of identify or give us an idea, a starting point, where your profile should be as far as your food, should be more higher fat, like you're saying, or lower fat, higher protein, lower, all these factors come into it. And that could be predetermined from when you're, and during the pregnancy, you're right, Matt. It actually goes back 3 generations. The epigenetic adaptation can occur over 3 generations. So going back to your grandparents, you are what your grandparents ate. So, that's an important factor. So, these come all up and add into your direct influence, which is your environment as you're growing up as well. You got 2 identical twins, which is 99.999, pretty much, let's say 100% identical DNA.
Oh, Hussein Bolt and his brother, his twin brother, Hussein Bolt. And one's a world-breaking sprinter, and the other is like, I don't know, didn't do much in sport, I guess. Why not? We didn't hear it.
Why? That's where exercise comes into it, causes gene expression. He probably had good genes for speed, power, output, right? Brother did nothing, so he didn't get that expression. Also, food. There's a lot of factors come into it that causes that adaptation and causes the sequence of the gene expression that then carries over to. Someone sent me a photo. Anne.
Yeah.
So,
Anne, yeah.
so I don't want to know what's there. So, the gene expression would be different for him because the fact that he's done, maybe he was exposed to the sport that he was genetically disposed for.
Predisposed for, right.
He was lucky on that sense. Lucky, and also, I mean, it doesn't mean he doesn't work as hard. It probably means he probably worked harder.
Right.
Because he was good at it. So when you're good at something, you enjoy it, you actually go harder too.
Well, I mean, he may have eaten different diet as well. Yep. He may have hung around with a different social circle. I mean, there's just so many other variables around everything around your genes, right? Epigenetics is everything around them. And just because you're a twin doesn't mean that you might look the same, but you then start splitting them in their environmental situation being different, you're going to get two different things, yeah?
Like we come back to the honeybee.
Right.
Come back to that. I mean, it's a very basic concept of the queen and the worker bee.
Right.
What they were exposed to creates the worker bee or the queen bee. In this case, creates a world-class sprinter or whoever his brother is.
Or
his brother could be very, very successful, but maybe in a totally different field, unrelated, and don't get out in the media. But, it's black and white difference, though, between them.
Right. His brother might be actually happier.
Maybe.
One's famous. Right.
Fame doesn't, trust me, I know fame doesn't make you happy. That's for sure. I've seen that.
Yeah, I know you've seen a lot of that in the circles that you mix with. But so, all right, we're sort of getting to an hour and a half, and there's so much.
Yeah, I just noticed
this topic.
And I've got 2% battery left.
All right, so Pete, what final words do you want to say? So I might have one or two other questions. We might have some from the people watching. So if you want to ask, you better ask now. Pete, what other things would you like to inform people about with epigenetics so they can understand it, and then maybe how they can take some steps towards how they can? I mean, I use PH360, and that's what I put in my programs if people are interested. But what would you suggest, or what other things would you like to mention about epigenetics?
Well, I think something like PH360 is a good starting point. I mean, don't get too complex into it. I mean, the nice thing about PH360, it does simplify things for you, and that's what people need. Once you start making things too complex, then they're going to say, "Oh, they can't do that." So simplify.
They get overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. So go through. That is an important factor there. And Ryan says, "Hi, Ryan," asking a question there, which I'll answer that offline because I've only got a minute battery left.
Yeah.
So going through a 360, the PH360 is kind of probably the easiest way for people to go through and find out what's going on as far as the DNA and the epigenetic adaptation is concerned. Now, the takeaway is just because you have certain genes doesn't mean that they're expressed, or you have to be limited to what the genome says. So, for example, you can, I think Anne was a high endurance markers.
Yes, she was about 70%. Yeah.
Yeah. And look at the sports were mostly power.
Yes.
So
soccer, rugby, gymnastics.
You can train over that, and not only can you train over that, but you can trigger other genes that will become more dominant over the
Right.
So don't be stuck, and like Matt says, just keep it simple. One thing at a time often is the thing you want to look at. I think first thing is probably look at the health risk factors first.
Right.
Just the inflammation markers, cardiovascular. Don't worry about cancer risk. Cancer risk is not genetic, it's epigenetic. We talked about that. So if you're doing everything else, that's going to cancel that out anyway. So don't panic about if you've got certain cancer genes, don't panic. It's the last thing you need to worry about, because stress itself in the mind. Bruce Lipton talks about the mind and epigenetics. So that's another factor too. Mindset, meditation, what you were talking about yesterday with visualization. Visualization is big.
Yeah, totally.
That can cause genes to turn off and on.
Right. Okay, and that's why, out of the mandala I've got in the middleagedmillennial.com site, the 7 areas, and the first one is mindset. And actually, I'm going to move it to the core because it's connected to everything. Because to change your epigenetics, you've got to make decisions and choices. To do that, you make the decisions and choices consciously up here in most. Well, you make them consciously at the end, but they're actually driven by the subconscious. So, that whole point in the mind and mindset piece, I think is massive for epigenetic expression. And like I said, Bruce Lipton is an expert in that particular area.
Read his books if anybody's interested. His books are really good, but you can get a kind of a synopsis of his books too out there on the web. But yeah, like Matt was saying too, his father's father died of a heart disease at 60s. His father's going to 93 and no issue. And that's that whole genetic, we're talking about the gene expression, you know, it doesn't mean you're going to die from a heart attack because you've got history of it in your family. Don't worry about that. And it's vice versa too. Just because your family doesn't have history doesn't mean that you don't have a gene present that you need to be knowing about. I mean, it's good to know this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think in most cases, if you're living, yes, Matt, biology, I believe that's the one for Bruce Lipton. So if you're living what we refer to as a healthy lifestyle, what I would consider a healthy lifestyle, then most of those things are taken care of.
That's it. Eat, move, and sleep properly, right? Make sure you're recovering.
Yep.
Sleep's your number one. Water, I remember you saying, and distill it if you can. You can remineralize it maybe. And then your other one was, sleep, water, and was it food or moving?
Well, water, diet can go together, and then the movement, exercise basis,
Right, so that's what I have there. It's my mindset, and then it's the consumption, I call it, consume, which is eat's a part of that, which is water's a part of that. Move I have in there, and recovery, right, which sleep is massive. Different forms of recovery around meditation, those sorts of things.
I suck at meditation. I have a focus of a 2-year-old, so for me, I meditate for about 3 seconds, and that's it.
Wow, you actually meditate for 3 seconds. That's pretty
good. No, I don't even meditate. Don't waste my time. For me, it's not me. But everybody's different, see? So for me, I find a meditative state doing something else.
Right.
So just doing what people think traditionally has been meditation. Yep. Meditation is anything that puts your mindset into that state.
That flow state. And focus on one thing. Right? Yeah. And I know you have things that you do around that. I mean, I can go go-kart racing.
Sex.
Yeah, sex. Boom. Right.
But there's
every day.
So there are things. Everybody's like you said, go-kart racing, right? I mean, put you into the zone. You know, the whole zone mindset. Mm-hmm.
I'm just one thing, and that's it, and I'm totally present. You know, other people have other things, and there's other things to do that as well. I mean, she loves to move. When she's moving, it kind of puts her in a zone, you know, and she's much happier in that state. So, hence all the sporting activity that she's involved with. All right. I mean, we might lose you, Pete, if we haven't already. I think you froze up. Yeah, you're gone. Okay. All right. So, guys, it seems like we've lost Pete. But just to sort of land this one, because his battery's gone flat. He's back. Other side. Now he can move into troll mode. So. Just to bring this one to a close, unless Pete wants to jump on for any final comments, let's just remember some of the things that have come out of this. You've got a set of genes. So here we go. I'll bring him back on. He can help me close out. So just to land this one, big topic, something that's a topic that's become topical right now. And there is a lot of confusion that has been out there around, my genes, it's not in my genes. And you've got some, people in the medical system saying, yes, you're genetically predisposed. And therefore, you get things like Angelina Jolie with the BRCA gene, BRCA gene, and she decides to lop off her breasts. Whoa, well, we just heard someone there. So just closing out.
I'm back.
Pete. Yeah.
Yep, I was listening. I just changed over to my phone. Okay. I thought I'd give you a little bit of our background here for you to finish off with some positive reinforcement.
I was going to say, talking about epigenetics, let's look outside your backyard. I mean, which I and Anne had the pleasure of sharing with you. There it is. It's just stunning. Queenstown, New Zealand. Beautiful.
Not bad today.
Not bad today. Yeah, well, not too bad here too, I got to say. But we got sun and beach. You've got the mountains, and we both got the clean air to a degree. You got more than me. So,
probably a little bit more.
Yeah, epigenetically, you've got your whole set of genes. There are a certain number of genes that, if you express, could bring out, the best you. There is a way now to take steps for people that are watching if they want to start to look more at epigenetically expressing themselves towards their best. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Pete, so I'm not saying any porky pies inadvertently. PH 360, Personal Health 360. There's a guy called Matt Ryman, who's the CEO and founder of this company. It's one of the things I use as a baseline, along with a number of other things, in fact, that I'm incorporating on the advice from Peter as well into the program. And currently we're working with executives in this, and we're also looking to bring a more of a mainstream version of this to the masses as well, and helping people being able to sort of regain their youthful vitality and start to fine tune. And it's all based around the few basic things of, you know, what you're kind of consuming, what you're eating, how you're moving, and what sort of movement is best for you, if we're talking at an epigenetic point of view.
And what you enjoy too.
And what you enjoy, what makes you feel good, and what foods are perhaps best for you. Like Pete was saying at the beginning of this FB Live, I mean, one man's food could be another man's poison, you know? And, you know, we're not talking pharma here right now, pharmaceuticals, we're talking even food, right? And where food can be good or not good for you, depending on your genetic makeup. And expressing foods that you express the right genes and don't create inflammation in the body for you. And some general ones that are pretty safe, you know, like curcumin, as you said. What were the other one or two, Pete?
Well, yeah, coffee is top of the list there.
What, chlorogenic? Is it chlorogenic acid? I think it's the antioxidant that's in there.
Yep. And then there's, well, you got your tea, which is another one that it is, that kind of depend on the individual genes as well. But the tea with the UGCG is kind of up there with quite important. But like Matt said before on the, you know, you can get an extract, which is probably very efficient for that too.
Right.
But you don't, you know, if you're drinking coffee and tea, you're kind of taking a lot of stuff in there. So coming back to what you were saying, doing something like PS360 is probably because they kind of put everything together for you. So instead of you going out and having to kind of get a bit of this information, get a bit of this information from all these different places, trying to put it together and trying to make sense of it, you know, it's simplistic and it's more basic to follow. You don't have to worry about all the other, you know, issues that you got going on. You just, okay, there's a template right here. This is what I do. Boom.
Exactly. Right. So, you know, that helps people. It simplifies it, makes it easier for them to start to fine tune.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
fine tune after. Get the basics down. Fine tune later.
Yeah. Eat, move, sleep. Matt said here as we close out too, one's purpose. So, you know, the other four I kind of have is like connecting socially, contribution, which is where we get fulfillment from, and you know, I guess that spiritualizing as well. And this is the overall sort of banner of well-being, where you know, you're learning about yourself and who you are, and starting to peel off the onion. We're getting a little more woo-woo in it, but that's where you start to really take it to the next level. Right now, we could help a lot of people on planet Earth just eating, moving, and sleeping properly. The recovery piece is huge, and that one, there's a lot of fat, and I mean that in the right positive context, and there's a lot of upside, a lot of low-hanging fruit, just sitting in recovery and getting the right type of sleep. We start talking about heart rate variability and those sorts of things, which we can talk about in a different episode. But yeah, so hopefully that's kind of given some food for thought, so to speak, for people, but perhaps some steps. Any further questions on this stuff? We've got a community, hill.me. So it sits here in Middleaged Millennial. You'll see a community, hill.me. We're also going to be bringing a community for the executive and the executive life. I know what that's like, having been in it for 28 years. Pete, you would have been exposed to a certain amount of that yourself, no doubt, or at least people that have been in it that you've had to help. Yeah, unfortunately. You know, that old system's kind of broken too, and it's breaking a lot of people right now. So, you know, I'm going to be setting up a community name, currently confidential until I actually put it on there, which is going to be in the next couple of days. And we're looking to have, and I hope I'm not speaking too soon here, Pete, you're looking to be part of that community as well. It's going to be for a select set of executives.
Apparently, yeah, you twist my arm on that one.
Yeah, phew. And we have some pilot action happening right now with the exec program. So that community will be based around that as we define that out for a very select few executives that I actually have as friends that I'm connected to, and I, you know, care for within my inner circle to begin with before we expand that one out. So Heal.me right now, come in there. We'll be drawing some executives from there and from other connections that I have. Pete, once again, thanks, mate. This has been invaluable. We got a lot of views on the first session that we did last week, which is amazing. Hopefully, this is going to benefit a lot of people. Ask any questions, you can PM me or Peter. And
you can also just tag me on this if they want to ask questions on the feed here, and then if they tag me, I can kind of come on board anyway and answer the questions.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'll do that. Terrific. So, guys, remember, and as Matt Atanasio says too, and it's all about being in the present. And as Pete said, the mind, and Bruce Lipton is very good on this with regards to epigenetics and the mind. Remember to enjoy
Elisa said something
right now.
Elisa said something very important here. I wanted to say is living from joy is great for longevity too, and I think that's really important. There is that you notice one thing when people retire from work, and if there's something they love, that's the day they start dying. Yeah. So doing something you always love, it doesn't necessarily have to be work, but always having that something that you're passionate about and love, and really, and this is something I'm passionate about. So I don't do this for work. Unless you're going to start paying me, but this is a passion. So following your passion, following what makes you happy is very, very important. So that's very important. That Elisa said that find that joy in life.
It is, and that it's interesting. That's coming down to that number 7 I have in the mandala is spiritualizing. In other words, learning about who the hell you are, and getting rid of that conditioning and influence to those natural impulses within yourself and within your heart to do what you actually enjoy. And it's okay to do, one thing I've learned, and not so long ago, is it's okay to do what you enjoy, and making kind of work and life actually life overall, integrating it. And that's what I'm busy trying to do right now, and transitioning my situation, if I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable, from the corporate world. This stuff comes easy for me, and it's a lot more satisfying. So and people I've met on this journey, Peter, who's here right now, and many others, Doc Tester, and Shivers and Western Murphy, Matt Atanasio, all part of the same movement, and trying to create some momentum around helping people lead more purposeful, healthier, longer, and higher performance lives. They don't always overlap, performance and health, so sometimes you have to make some decisions there what you want in life, but that's what it's all about. So any final words, Pete, before we jump off on this one?
I think we've gone long enough.
We have. All right, guys, remember.
Long enough.
Enjoy life right here, right now. I mean, look at both our backgrounds, Pete. Awesome. Right here, right now.
Today.
Yay! Way to go, Pete. Okay. Catch you on the next one, guys.